Hi, I'm Britton LaRue, and this is Moon to Moon. Moon to Moon is a space to consider, celebrate, and share the ways we come home to ourselves, anchor through change, and uncover our power. 1 month, one phase, one loving step at a time. Hello, Moon to Moon. It's Britton. How are you? How are you? How are you? How are you? Here at the end of Virgo, as we look upon the door of the eclipse, shifting into Libra, shifting into the fall. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, it's coming. I'm so excited. I just love the fall. I just love it. And I am soaking it all up. I feel the wonk of the eclipses, but also I feel very steadied by some of the larger energies that are gifts, like a sun in Virgo. Yes. So grounding for me. I feel very behind the scenes, making preparations for future things so that they'll flow out of me well and everything will feel like it's been taken care of with such love and foresight. I've been creating for Moon to Moon and for Emergence Astrology Year 1 and for Underdog to Diva. I have 3 long-term containers I'm holding right now. I'm making videos and audios every single day. Actually, just really love this. I love the production schedule, I really feel like I'm living my dreams here because the truth is, on Monday morning, I want to look at the week and see here's when we're producing film, and here's when we're writing, and here's when you're daydreaming and kind of ostensibly doing nothing, but we all know that a lot is going on there. And here's when you're interfacing with other human beings. And I love having production as part of my life. I really am Saturning the shit out of my Saturn and Leo, coming into this middle age of being on camera, and actually really liking it. I just finished my 2nd round of mentorship with Mary Greasy, who was recently on Moon to Moon. Things are very expansive over in my mystical space as I reach more and more into trust that I can access so much more than I think I can. It's riveting. Everything's feeling very magical. There's lots of synchronicities going on. I feel like it's a time of great momentum. It feels like collectively we're on some kind of trajectory of shift, and it brings up all kinds of things. It brings up some horrors and terrors. It brings up a lot of confusion. It brings up confrontation that the past is in the past and it's time to update contracts so we can live in the present. And also we're tapping into more of our gifts, I think, as a species. I'm just going to say it like that. I think we're all becoming more psychic. We're all becoming more connected to one another and to the consciousness of the earth, is what it feels like to me. And I'm adapting and refining my service, my teachings, my art, my connections, my relationships to the information that I see and feel to be incoming. One of my great fall projects, summer into fall projects, is the Unshaming the Houses project that I'm doing here. And so I'm bridging us now to my introduction to the episode. I'm feeling the magnitude of this project. It feels really cool to be holding it. I'm proud to be its steward. We're coming into quarter 2 now of this project because we're now going to be in the 4th, 5th, and 6th house that we're looking at next. And listeners, if you're just stumbling onto Unshaming the Houses, there's 3 that are before this. There's the 1st house, 2nd house, and 3rd house. These are all extraordinary conversations full of many, many words that may be very supportive to you. I'm encouraging you to receive them all, even and especially for houses where you may not have any placements, where you may feel like, well, I don't have anything in that house. This is a common confusion. And let me just say that you have all 12 houses in your chart. All of your houses are being looked over by the planet that rules the sign that you have there. You have transits that move through that house. You have progressions that move through all the houses. You have the moon moving through the houses every lunar cycle. You have this house in your life, every house. And I think sometimes when we over-focus on the houses where we have chart placements, there's a lot that's like missing, and it can feel really, really, really helpful to spend time with the sign of the house where you don't have placements and spend time contemplating that house's affairs, the significations, the realm of life that is that house. The houses are where we do humaning. It's the earth in the chart. Each between the 12 houses, we have everything that would happen on earth. Everything that happens in the human experience can be placed inside of a house. Just like pick a topic, I'll tell you what house it belongs to. People might disagree with me because astrology is not a system that works like that, where everyone completely agrees 100% of the time. But that this is to say that all houses matter. This particular house that we're going to be looking at today in this conversation that I have with Rebecca Padgett, who I'll introduce in a second, this is a really important house. It's a really important house. In the language of astrology, we speak of types of houses. And one of the ways that we can talk about types of houses is we talk about the angular houses. The angular houses are the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th. The angular houses are arguably the most consequential to how we understand ourselves. Because the 1st house is identity, opposite the 7th house of how we are in relationship. 4th house, who we are in our private self, the private us, the private me. The 10th house opposite, most public, reputation, what you're known for. And these are usually the things people go to astrologers to get help with. These are really big parts of life because it's how we understand ourselves. It's how we make sense of who we are, who we think we are. There's a lot of information in those 4 houses, whether you have placements there or not. The 4th house is not the easiest one to talk about because it's the most private. It's the private self. And I got to be honest, with this one, I was hesitant about who to invite. You know, like, who's going to want to go there? Like, who's going to want to go there with me? And I knew then that I wanted it to be someone that I knew well, someone that I knew that I could drop in with right away, someone that I deeply trust and who I know trusts me, so that kind of comfort is just instantaneous. It's like already built in. It's already in the frequency of the space that we hold together. And these are some of the many reasons why I invited Rebecca Padgett to be the guest astrologer for the 4th house episode. Rebecca and I have a long history. We share a little bit of it in the conversation. Many listeners are familiar with Rebecca Padgett. Let's see, we go back to 2020. Rebecca found me through this podcast when it was in its infancy. Like infancy. And I announced that I was going to teach my first ever astrology class. And she's one of the people who said hello. Hello. She did say hello. She said yes. How funny. 2 other of her classmates in that first class are going to be part of this series. Because a very magical thing happened with that class. I magnetized humans who have been like soul kin for years now. And we all grew very close, especially because it was during quarantine that we were meeting together in a weekly way. And then Rebecca joined the Magician's Table, my spring offering, in 2022. And then in 2023, Rebecca was the 13th reader for the Magician's Table, which is a leadership position within that container. So we were working together in a weekly way for about 6 months, because there's about 3 months of preparations before Magician's Table actually even begins. So, and then Rebecca was co-teacher for Moon to Moon last fall. And so we were also, again, working very closely with one another. Yes, Rebecca is a much beloved human in my containers where she's been. It's not difficult to feel awareness that you're in the midst of someone just truly spectacular in their beauty. And it's my honor to have Rebecca back for you to experience her energy and her frequency, because Rebecca truly just heals through her presence. And you'll feel that as it's carried through her voice. Let me read Rebecca's bio. Rebecca Padgett is an artist and mystic who lives in rural Ontario, Canada. Rebecca's passion is to help guide people to develop their own intuitive and psychic abilities. She uses a range of tools from astrology, tarot, and energy work, to psychism and mediumship, working with spirit guides and her intuition to support clients on their path through life's changes and challenges. She's also intensely interested in exploring the area where intuition and creativity meet, be it through intuitive abstract painting or her current work exploring ancestors through found objects and collage. Rebecca enjoys working with the cycles of the seasons, animals, and the night sky, and living in the wide open rural landscape, which quiets and expands her mind, allowing her work to grow and change in harmony with the cyclical nature of the world around her. Such a beautiful bio, Rebecca. All right, then. Without further ado, I give you Unshaming the Fourth House with Rebecca Padgett. Welcome back to Moon, Rebecca Padgett.
Thank you for having me again, Britton LaRue. Such a pleasure to be here.
So great to see you.
It's really good to see you too.
Yeah, and you're the art on your walls and just takes me to a whole vibe. The times I've known you, I love it. I think it was about 2 years ago, this time when you came on for This Is Who I Am Now. That
Oh, wow.
episode, I think that was 2022. Does that sound right to you?
Cool. Yeah, it does. Yeah, last year was sort of a blur, and then yeah.
Well, I always like to begin with how we're connected, even though you've been on here before. I'll share that we've known each other since at least 2020, if not earlier.
Yeah.
When you joined my first long-term astrology container charting your course, March 2020 or April 2020, maybe it was. Does that sound right? And before
Yeah,
that, did you find me through this podcast, I think?
exactly. Yeah, probably around December.
Wow.
Yeah, of 2019. Yeah,
Wow,
wow. So much
Rebecca.
has happened. I
Mhm.
know.
So we
Wow,
were
it's incredible.
charting your course for a year, and that was such an intimate space, seeing each other almost every week, talking about astrology.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yes. And then you joined the Magician's Table in 2022 in the spring. Then you came on fall of 2022 to share about your experience of shifting from astrology, more of being an astrologer, to focusing more on your gifts as a psychic. Does this
Yeah.
sound right? And
Yes.
then you were the 13th reader with me in 2023 for Magician's Table. So we were in close collaboration most of 2023, also because you were teaching the intuition portion of Moon to Moon last fall.
Yeah. Oh, it was an
Yeah.
exciting year. Yeah, it really was.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming to chat about the fourth house with me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this. I feel like Moon to Moon has fourth house qualities, like the way that you have guests we can come back and it feels like a home to explore new topics, and yeah, so feel that right away.
Oh, I love that. Oh, yeah. So let's see. To begin, what are some ways that you would invite like a client or anyone who's learning astrology into the fourth house, like keywords you like to use or descriptions that feel right to you?
Yeah, this one, I mean, I have to admit right away that this has always felt like one of those houses, maybe the most one that has felt very, it's taken me time to really get to understand it. Um, and I guess from like a more traditional sense, I would say it's like the place of like home and family and lineage, which, can be pretty loaded for people, right? It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So when I'm in a reading with someone, it's definitely an invitation. You kind of touch to see, especially if they do have something going on there that you maybe want to explore in the reading, but it does feel like something to be gentle with and to see what response or how deep they want to go because feels like it has a lot of depth to it,
Mhm.
almost never ending feeling
Yeah,
like roots of a chart.
the roots. Yeah. Someone once, I heard someone call it the basement, and I thought that was very interesting and evocative.
Hmm.
I was remembering thinking about coming on with you today that the Hellenistic name is something like the subterranean place. Because it's the it's like, the bottom. It's what was it? The under sky. It was the depth of the night in the moment of a chart. I remember once thinking about it as like when when you're a kid and you go to a friend's house and there's like different smells and like different, you go in their pantry and it's like, this is what your pantry's like, like you go around into these intimate places and it's like, how fascinating, because it's so different than your own living quarters and your own smells and the feelings that are in your house. And I sort of feel like that to me is like the vibe of the fourth house is some of those spaces that like you almost don't even know, you don't know that it has a smell because that's just what your house smells like. Right.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. Yeah, no, I associate definitely have that as well in terms of thinking about lineage. I mean, the fourth house brings me to my grandmother's kitchen, where her pantry was. And it always had this, she was always cooking. So it's always this food smell, which, it had a round table and it was sort of like you had to walk down into it. So it was like a bit of a kind of like a cooking pit, but it was very inviting. And many people would stop by there. It would be nothing for me as a kid to go there after school, and you would have, other family that were there, or, they lived down the street from a church. So, like, a priest would be there, and she was always feeding everybody. And it was just this welcoming, but it was almost like the trail of the smell, like, led you in the house. It was just like, oh, I need to go check out, like, what is she up to? What are we going to eat?
Oh, what a cool memory.
Yeah.
So your fourth house is Sagittarius, yes?
Hmm. Yeah.
And you have Neptune there.
And I have Neptune there. Yeah. So maybe that's what's taken me a little while to kind of figure that out, having the fire signs in these sort of more liminal spaces. What does that feel like? And then obviously with Neptune there, it is like a dreamscape for me, for for sure. Um, it's always shows up very um like a comfort in the dream. And in terms of shame, I think that something that I've looked back upon and had shame around is like being that kid that is a daydreamer, spending hours looking outside of a window and being like, what was I doing? Like, I didn't do anything, you know? But I was like traveling in these spaces and like I have these like very, these landscapes that I feel into with the fourth house. It feels very like landscape to me from
Mm.
like where I grew up, these very open Sagittarius, freedom, space roaming landscapes. Yeah. And so I've been kind of reclaiming that a little bit because I'm realizing with my current work as someone who spends a lot of time in the liminal, I'm realizing that I have a lot of comfort there and I can find myself there because of like the practice of daydreaming. It's like
Wow.
home for me. Yeah.
Daydreaming as home, Neptune in the fourth. Hmm. That's really beautiful. Do
Thank
you?
you.
Yeah,
It
I
also came
think
with a lot of alcoholics, Neptune in the fourth.
Neptune,
Yeah. Yeah.
Neptune in the fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Neptune to me is the outer planet that I find the most frightening, but of course, also where I feel the most myself. So, um, but the
Yeah.
slipperiness um, of Neptune can feel I think quite frightening. Um, Knowing like what is real?
Yeah.
That feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a fascinating signature to have as like the foundational base um, for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's felt, um, yeah, like you're saying, very kind of strange to tap into, but yet I keep being shown that it is like my home space. Um, yeah, especially as someone who identifies as an artist as well. Like I just like live here.
Yeah.
And, my life is very set up for that. Even like my home space is, it feels like very Sagittarian too, where it's like you can come to my home to learn. Like there's books everywhere. It is fire, like it is a bit chaotic, I'll admit. I'm a Virgo sun, so there is some organization to it, but like I don't fall into that traditional organized home space that you would think. And I think this is that Sagittarian sort of, I need to kind of just have those books available wherever they are, or I need to be able to pick up a paintbrush. There's one in every corner, that kind of feeling that anything can happen, or my partner's a musician. So it's this very, and we live on a farm, on farmland. So there's a lot of space to do anything you want, which feels so, um, yeah, just everything for me in terms of like the foundation of building my life.
Giving that to yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's so beautiful. I feel like that could, and maybe was for your younger self, like us, could be a zone of shame of like, oh, adults are supposed to, like you're supposed to fill in the blank. Shouldn't I be fill in the blank? But gosh, that fourth house world is, it's a process of claiming it for yourself, you know, when you've, and relative to what you've inherited.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that shame around, like, I still feel it, parents coming over, or like they're not comfortable here,
Mm.
just not comfortable. Where I have artist friends that come over and they just like don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
something that I was thinking about too is like, part of what you're inside of in a fourth house literal way, fourth house as living space growing up, is you're inside of the awareness of whatever shame your parents have, you know?
Yeah.
If we associate the fourth house with parents, there's debate over which parent, but let's just say both caregivers, primary caregivers, let's say that. Um, that awareness of where they are with themselves and how that frequency or that energy affects the space, is what we're talking about, you know, with unshaming the fourth house. Because then you become an adult and you have your own, you know, you may or may not have your own living space, but there's some space that you calling your own.
Yeah.
To what degree do you want to claim it in an unshamed way and set the shame of the family, outside your land or the perimeter?
Yeah. Four walls. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. So it's so intense. There's just so much there, right? Of like, first of all, having the courage to go there and like seeing it, and for me, like lifting that Neptunian veil or seeing addiction as part of it, keeping it down or whatever. Um, but there's also kind of this freedom that I'm experiencing right now. I'll share with your listeners that I'm about to head into my third trimester of pregnancy. And so I've been thinking so much about the fourth house and having, yeah, these direct experiences of clarity, of seeing, how I was brought up and what am I taking with me and what am I leaving behind. And it feels like this huge reset and like responsibility in a way, when I think about how then, the fourth, especially if you're thinking about, angular houses or like how the IC, the IC and the MC are there, not to get too technical into this, but, the legacy you're leaving. And like I have this opportunity to like reset that, um, which feels pretty huge. I mean, I
Yeah,
think at any point you can, but becoming a mother and this being our first child, there's just really a lot of that swirling in my world right now.
totally. Yeah,
Mm.
and it's such a beautiful yearning and, um, boundary, too, more clearly, to want to create as you shift to another generation. Like, what is the dynamic in this space?
Hmm. Yeah.
And, um,
Yeah.
you know, I feel for me like the unshaming process um has shifted a lot of my like household behaviors because they're less rooted in I'm probably doing a terrible job, kind of like strain. And
Mm-hmm.
coming more from a self-forgiving and joyful place of desire, but definitely, like, I feel like the more I've been contemplating the fourth house for today, the more it's just like, whoa, it's like literal baggage, right? Like, this is the baggage.
Yeah. And you can just drop it off at the, secondhand shop like you can, which is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's the process that's involved, but yeah, there's a lot there. Again, back to basements.
Hmm.
You just
Hmm.
really put a lot down there. Or there's a lot down there that's been down there for years, right?
Yeah. And there can be a lot of um like in the family that I'm no longer merged with through marriage, um there's the sense that, like, you can't get rid of things, like, it all comes along. And just feeling like shame around wanting to throw things away, like shame around wanting to clear,
Yeah. Yeah,
because I'll be like a bad
definitely.
mom if one day my kid's like, why didn't you keep that fifth grade art project? Because there was this example of, like, literally all art projects were kept, and this is like, this fourth house stuff is very real, you know?
Yeah.
We live with these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it affects our day to day, right? It's that
Yeah.
like fourth, like position. Like it's very personal
Yeah,
and like
it is.
in the day to day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so, like, for my teens, that's what their room is to them, and they're very, like, they need to know that it's their space, and I'm not gonna go in and touch stuff, you know? Um, and, like, just feeling into the boundaries inside of living spaces to protect a sense of, like, where does my energy get to be free to be here, and it's fully mine, like, don't mess with this, um
Yeah.
yeah, that's some powerful stuff to lay the ground for then the adult life is, do you feel able to create your own space in the fourth house where you grew up? And how does that then translate, whatever that looked like, what happens then over then adulthood? Hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Like I almost think with myself in that regard of like I think it's so awesome. It's so cool that you have the just giving your daughters that they can have the space and do what they want. Not going in there and messing with it. Like that is such a gift. Um, and I had like my own space in the house, like a room growing up, but as a very creative child, like I needed to make that mess and I wasn't allowed to. It's like my house was sort of run like a ship in terms of order and cleanliness. It's just my mom's way. Her father was in the Navy and their house was run like a ship. So everything had this order and flow. And she's a Libra sun too. So maybe, there's balance and harmony in there too. Um, but because I didn't have that, I mean, I could go outside and do whatever. Like that was my saving part for sure, or my daydream window. Um, but it kind of like sent me on this journey that I wasn't sort of allowed to need that space, or I wasn't allowed to say that I wanted to, you know, make a mess, or the way that I'm living now, I'm like, is this just, this is just like backlash from not being able to express that. Like, you know, like it's not like it's anyone's fault, but like this is kind of your doing because, you know, I'm, there was years of not being able to explore that for myself. So yeah, this idea of having, you know, a space of one's own, no matter how big or small that is within the space, to just do your thing, whatever that is, I think is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, yeah, I'm reflecting on how the my children, right? Like the first one first was in my uterus, which I guess, you know, you could think of as like the first fourth house. Um, and as I've shared with you before, I was obsessed with Marie Antoinette and Sophia Coppola back
Amazing.
then. And like decorating her room and like listening to the soundtrack. I just would just, it was the most joyous thing, is like kind of like projecting out from my womb what this space was going to be like, you know, and have her arrive there. And it's really fascinating then that she's in costume construction and costume design and as a theater
That's incredible. I love it so much. It's so
she like
beautiful.
owns 12 corsets.
Yeah. Amazing. Like we were just channeling here. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, there's this point where there was like this, the boundary started to arrive of like my wanting her room to continue to be a projection of my own fantasy space, like was now, she had to say, get out, you know, like, no, this is my room. I don't like that color. I don't, why would I want that? Like, mom, that's ugly. And just stepping back from it, like, has been painful. And honestly, my own unshaming has helped me in just like, not taking it so personally, you know, because my own shame made me feel like I'm a bad mom if I don't da 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 da, like order, rules, tidiness, aesthetic, you know, coherence in the space, you know. Wanting to control the environment was part of my own hypervigilance around my own, stemming from my own shame, I think. And this process of noticing through unshaming has really helped me in chilling out. Now, if she were to walk in here right now, she would probably say that we are still
Have a
in
different
process.
story. Yeah. Always. Yeah.
Like, oh, you sound like you think we're done with this story, mom.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
But it's I'm reflecting so much on my own parenting, I think, here, because it's just, this is part of what the fourth house is. Like when I think to the patterns in my own growing up, where I wasn't allowed to actually touch laundry because I was going to mess the piles up and I didn't know how to put everything in an orderly enough fashion into the drawers. So I left for college, like not having done laundry. Like, this is not okay. This kind of like over parenting
Yeah.
to keep the whatever it was for my mom's own emotional health, you know.
Mhm.
ended up being a situation for me where it was like decades of feeling like I don't understand how to have a house, or like I don't understand how to have a living quarter without someone who's like taking care of things, because my mom did all those things and
Mhm.
was like, you just study, you just study. She just wanted me to go to college. So I wasn't incorporated into what Montessori would call practical life. Like I was not given a practical life curriculum. And so my shame as like a homekeeper in adulthood has been just feeling like ill-equipped, like unskilled. Um,
Mm.
Surely I'm doing this wrong. And that fed into patterns of not thinking I could take care of myself financially, which like
Mhm.
pops us over to the second house. But I think the second house and the fourth are very related thematically.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
feel the same way for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I do have my chart ruler there, Mars.
Yeah.
Mars in Cancer and my fourth. And I just think some of these frustrations and irritations and the restlessness that I feel about home come from, I don't know. I guess I just didn't really feel rooted um, that deeply. And so it's like my whole life is sort of learning about how to create a space that supports me. And that's been
Mm.
such a huge thing I've been on at midlife. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell too. I've just really loved watching your journey with your home. And it's yours.
it is mine.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So beautiful. I just feel like all the decisions that are made, aesthetically, and I just feel having the space that you get to make those decisions like for you, like you're really in this it just a space of strength or something.
Hmm.
Hmm. It's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, as you know, and I'll share this in case it resonates for anyone listening. The In my marriage, I just felt like I felt very unempowered, disempowered, because it wasn't me like making the money, and there was this dynamic around, well, this is yours, actually. And there's a kind of, I think, at a kind of at a foundational level for me, thinking about the fourth house as foundations, there's like a sadness and not fully belonging to where you lay your head down, at least for me with
Yeah.
cancer there.
Yeah, of course. Wow. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but coming into claiming that, given that I didn't have that growing up really either, because that you're living in your parents' home. Um, it really is like, now that I'm living it in an empowered way, it's still a process, big time, but I really see how it connects to the other angles so deeply. The
Hmm.
And for those who are newer to charts, the fourth house is opposite the 10th house, which is like your career and your public life, where fourth house is private. And like the ideal scenario here is that the fourth house is like the where you come home and you rest and you like unfurl and you feel supported, so that then you can go back out again and serve the world the way that's in affinity with you, right? And so
Hmm.
they're just so deeply tied. Like as hard as I might want to try to avoid the fourth house as important, because my moon my moon in Capricorn sees my 10th house is very important.
Yeah.
um it really
Yeah,
is
and it's
like
like
it
as
really can
above,
be.
so below
Yes.
experience,
It's like
Yeah.
the refuge. um
Yeah.
but many
Yeah.
human beings like may not feel that they have known that either, or what we define that as being has got to be so different for every single human.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's such an interesting zone in that way because I think there's a way that, when it comes up like in a chart or chart reading, it's one of the most fascinating places I feel to touch on, like that I'm like most interested in when people start to talk about it because it is so different for everybody. Like
Yeah.
everyone is coming from this different place with these different experiences. And even if, let's say you had a twin who had the same chart, there's still going to be that different interpretation of that space. And yeah, I'll share for myself that I guess that like there was a part of me that did feel into that foundation, like that I had that place to come home to. Because having Sagittarius there has been, yeah, this exploration.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
like what does that feel like? And I have to admit that I've kind of lived my life in a bit of a way of like definitely at points not having a home, and like I've experienced what that feels like and couch surfing for months. Even though I'm someone who like at the end of the day, like I really want that space, but I've never really like been conscious about, I've lived as an artist, right? So I haven't had like the money to be like, I'm gonna go buy a house. Like that's just like not that hasn't been my life path. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's been this like, with Sagittarius's connection to Jupiter, always this like belief that I'm gonna be okay,
mm,
and that like I will land somewhere. And like I have to say, I mean, I know I'm very aware of like how unpermanent homes are too. They can be so permanent, but also things can change
mm,
and that
mm,
foundation can come out really easily. So I find myself in this space now, this like very dreamy space, very much mirroring how I grew up as a child. And like, I feel like I just, landed here, like fell here somehow. And I'm like, wow, how did I get here? Because there was definitely a lot of apartments, a lot of, bachelor apartments, and a lot of just trusting that I would be okay. And even like surprisingly experiencing like traveling a little bit that, for instance, a trip that I took to New Mexico in 2014, I had a really difficult time leaving that land.
mm,
And like I don't have any connection there or come from there. But like I was like, this is a home for me. I've never felt that way. Anyway, I've lived in different places in Canada, but I was surprised to feel that way. It's like so connected of like I could root here. Like George O'Keeffe, I get you. I see.
mm,
I
mm.
understand.
So fascinating.
um
I have the same feeling about New Mexico. I recently had an astrocartography reading, and like my Venus lines run through
Amazing.
New Mexico. That could be interesting to look at.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's interesting bringing up the land here because I think, in a discussion around shame, it may be important to name that certainly for me, I'm from settler people who left Europe land some more fairly recent on my mom's side, which is tremendously anchoring. Like it's profoundly anchoring to speak some Swedish and like have visited Sweden and met family and like know the foods and know the holidays and feel there's a
Yeah.
tether. Where on my dad's side, there's no connection. It's lost, it feels to be.
Yeah.
I mean, through the unseen realms, we can feel it,
Yeah.
which is one of the great gifts of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
practices. But I think the shame of the settler, or the sh- the
Mm.
shame that could be attached to being on land that you don't feel that you belong to, or that you feel really belongs to others,
Yeah,
is
for
like
sure.
a kind of a rock bottom shame that so many of us are walking around holding, many of us facing that shame first of family to consider it,
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, I just wanted to name that because that just suddenly felt really important.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And again, there's so much there. And when you go into the unshaming of it, like that's why I do feel like there is a healing quality about the fourth, even though there's like
Mhm.
the difficulty in, yeah, going to those places that are there's a lot there. Again, the basement.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, but when you do, I think there is this, unlocking that occurs, you know, in terms of being able to kind of touch on those points and not carry the shame anymore. And then there's like this opening of lineage, or this, because I do kind of sense it to be a very, like, it goes so deep, it gets quite mystical, like
Yes.
goes kind of beyond the hurt and the shame and all of the, it's not to bypass all of the hard things that have happened, but when you can kind of get to like that underbelly of like roots and what's being passed down. I know that that's some second house stuff too, but I think it lives in the fourth, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do sense it to be this very mystical healing space too, even though maybe one of the most difficult spaces in the chart of healing. That's how I feel personally about it, and that I've
Yeah.
witnessed with other clients. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we went here because I imagine in your work as a medium, or if you're connecting clients to loved ones on the other side, that you can feel the kind of, there's probably shame that can come up that gets transmuted through whatever comes through.
The
Does that bring
connection,
anything up for
definitely.
you?
Yeah, because I do feel like it's like the place where the spirits live too.
Yeah.
There's like it's like ghosts, like the house of ghosts. Um and you can, like, when I'm doing those kind of readings, like you can feel the quality of the lineage, which I think is like so interesting, or like what part of the lineage wants to come through. There's like these very specific feeling qualities to that are unique to each person, that I sense into. And I would say in those sessions, a lot of times they are about unlocking shame and letting go of these things that are, hey, you don't, because I went through that in this lineage, you don't have to hold that for me. These very big
Mhm.
things that come up in session that can relieve someone of not carrying that baggage. And I mean, that's huge for
Huge.
people. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I know that some consider the house like it's like a pivoting place because it's the bottom of the chart. And so it's like where the chart begins to turn towards the eastern horizon, towards birth. So it's like a place of life and birth and old age, like extended old age. I don't know how people do this, but I know that you can learn things about how someone might die from the fourth house. um, so it's interesting to think about. We've talked about here removing stuff from your actual house and donating it. And now we're speaking to the spirit realm ancestors who may really want us not to carry something that they were carrying because we feel somehow obligated to go through the same thing in honor of them. And like what a
Mhm.
huge deal that is to feel like you really can let that story go, that lineage story go, that thing that's in the family go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then how the fourth then leads to the fifth, which is like, the house of joy and children
Mm,
and, sexuality to a certain degree and like, having that dark mystical process space, like, even carrying what we want to carry the good stuff with us into the creative space of like, if your grandmother was a seamstress and you're carrying that into, your house of joy. Yeah, it feels like such a dynamic point when we're thinking about it, like how the chart moves, if we're looking at it as a circle.
hmm
It feels like such an important point to rest in, spend time in, heal in, dip in and out. Because my journey with it has been like it feels so intense at times, or emotional even. Like I can't do it all. You can't do it all. And it's always happening. Like it's never, you're never gonna quote heal that space and it's good for everybody. All you can do is what you can do in this lifetime, and I think kind of
Yeah.
touching into it every now and again, or I always feel a calling with it where it like calls me kind of home to be like, okay, this is here. And sometimes it can have a Uranian quality where it's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I guess we're gonna go there. Or, I've actually been kind of chipping away at this and like the fourth or fifth piece is coming in now. And I'm like chipping away, but also building my own. If that makes
Totally.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how as I as I devote myself to updating my living quarters to present time, shall we say? The present time version of myself, removing the past that I don't need to carry. When I do go to like the family homes, I can feel myself plunged right back into like past dynamics,
Yes.
like whoosh, like we've lost touch with present time, like we are now in past dynamics. And that can be rattling. So it's almost like, oh, I can't wait to get back home. Can't wait to get back home. That feeling of like, I just want to go back to my space where I'm in present
Yes.
time with myself.
Yes.
hmm
Yeah. It's such a wild experience that because it's like, it's so ingrained in you. It's like, it just, I'm learning how to see it happen, but I always go there and then I'm like, oh shit, like it happened. When was that moment that I let it happen? Like it's just so,
Yeah,
you know, yeah,
it does.
ingrained. Yeah.
Yeah, and that brings me back to what you were saying earlier about like maybe your parents coming over and sort of feeling like
Yeah.
they don't really belong to your house, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
that same way. I almost feel like um it's kind of having me think I should have family over here more if I want them to know who I am now. You know what I mean? Rather than
Beautiful.
always go off
Yes.
campus.
Yes. Yes, and keep it like for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been thinking about that a lot with, you know, going to give birth in November and, I'm in Canada, so it's going to get snowy and people are going to have to come to me. I'm not going to be able to travel and there's vulnerability, right? There's vulnerability in having people come to your space. But also like I really just am starting to feel kind of like this feeling of being proud of like, yeah, this is how I live and this is how I want to bring my child in this environment where
Yeah.
you can be super creative and free and open, you
Yeah.
know?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
And you'll have to be uncomfortable and that'll be okay. I'll
it
have to
is
be okay with that
vulnerable.
uncomfortable.
So
Hmm.
if your living space is an extension of you, it is vulnerable that rather than like, I think I'm doing a house correctly, like this is what the world says a good house is. Um,
Yeah.
it is a vulnerable thing. Yeah. I was thinking about Matt, Matt, my boyfriend, he has
Yeah.
sun exactly on his IC in Pisces in the
Wow.
fourth house
Wow.
at 29 Pisces. And he, post-divorce, moved into this double height studio, uh, tall huge windows. He built a loft over the kitchen for his kids to stay. So they're all like one room living. And
Yeah.
so it's very unconventional, but it is like it is such a happy place to be because his energy shines so brightly. It's like this aquarium for the Pisces man to like have his art everywhere and
Amazing.
his plants and his
Yeah.
recording equipment. And yeah, I think about that with the fourth house of like really coming into the solar energy of the fourth house would be just like actual total embodiment of that sign and in an
Yeah.
unshamed way.
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting because first of all, I just love envisioning Matt's apartment and his kids being able to enjoy that space in that way, of
Mhm.
like going to dad's. That must be super cool. I would think anyway, is this Sag fourth house person. But my partner, yeah, he also has his son in the fourth in
Okay.
Aries. Yeah. And so I can relate to the solar quality of, I mean, he just loves being at home and totally shines here. And then like he has the carrying on of the lineage of the farm,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, in a time where so much is changing. So, with that Aries placement, he is definitely, figuring that piece out in terms of, just even climate and how it's changing and how, he's going to maneuver all of that. Carrying that piece on. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, but it's so beautiful to be around him at home. I mean, it just really is. I mean, he hates going out, to be honest. Like he does, but like he hates it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love being a homebody because that works really well with my 12th house parts of self.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then it's interesting. It's like in public, I never feel like he's quite as bright as like the sun, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
quite as bright as
exactly.
how he appears in his own home, where he's just like got this kingly presence radiating in the space.
Yeah.
And it's like everything he touches is gold in his own space. I think part of this is I love this so much. I mean, we may just always live separately, so I can just go over there and, and
And
behold.
experience that. Yeah. Awesome.
That's really sweet that we have these fourth house sons.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. Love
yeah.
it.
Wow. Let me think if was there anything that you had been reflecting on before we started that you were hoping to mention or speak to about the fourth?
No, I think that we have, I'm just looking, I've made a few just rough notes here, but no, we've really gone over it. I guess I'll just say from like my Virgo information place that I do have my progressive Venus moving through there right now. And
Lovely.
so I find that fascinating with, yeah, being pregnant and revisiting all of these home ideas of,
That's
you know,
great.
yeah. So it's
My
cool.
middle brother, who is Libra rising, he's an artist, um, lifelong artist. He has Venus in the fourth. And I mean,
Cool.
his uh, his homes are just they're just where it's like his hands just extend into the space, and the plants and the food he cooks and makes his furniture. Like, enjoy the
Oh,
progressed Venus,
it's
because I
wonderful.
mean that's a such a beautiful placement in a chart.
Yeah.
But how cool to experience it by progression. I may, if I live long enough, I may live long enough to have that fourth house progress Venus. I think mine's late
Some,
second. But
okay. Yeah.
let's see.
Amazing.
Well,
Yeah. What about
anything you
you?
want to share about yourself coming up, how people can find you or work with you?
Well, I mean, I am going into fourth house cocoon territory, so I'm not sure everything's a bit on pause right now. But um, but it feels kind of exciting because I do feel there will be this rebirth at the end. So I would say if you want to keep in touch with me and my work, to sign up for my newsletter, that'll be the first place that I'll let everyone know. Um, yeah, about when I'm going to continue with my reading space. Again, I do feel there's a transformation. I've been working one-on-one this year with people, which has really been, yeah, the place where I just love to spend time with people and evolve, like, and helping people develop their connection to the spirit world, as well as a lot of creatives, like how to bring that into their practice. And um, I feel like it brings a lot of depth to an inspiration and new ideas into one's world, whether you creatively, I think absolutely just had a lot of feedback there. But I think for anyone, so I feel myself sort of moving more in that direction, but we shall see,
Mm.
we shall
I
see.
love
But
my reading
obviously
with you.
anyone, oh, thank you, Britton. Yeah, I can't imagine not doing readings, but yeah, anyone that feels called to reach out. I mean, obviously I'm definitely open to chatting with people. So, but
Yay.
in terms of work, I'm taking a little break. So thank you for
And
asking.
your newsletter, it goes out like at the start of the month. Is that, or the equinoxes and the
Um,
solstices?
yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
it's a quarterly newsletter. I try to kind of pack them full, and then you won't hear from me for a while. But like I said, I am even taking a bit of a break. We'll see. We've got to see about the timing of it, but it will be the kind of the first place that I'll um, update my dear clients about, birth and, anything I want to share around that if I feel like sharing. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.
Oh, thank you, Britton. Such a pleasure to be with you always.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Dear listeners, if you felt a resonance with Rebecca's voice, I'm inviting you to check out the links that I will have in the show notes for connecting with Rebecca. I cannot recommend a reading with Rebecca with more enthusiasm. She has been so helpful to me in her capacity as a psychic. I really just can't even language it. It's so supportive. I even just feel grounded in knowing that she exists. So if I wanted another reading, that she's there. If she's available, I could get another one. That's anchoring for me. So cheers to that. Cheers to supporting the psychics of this world and celebrating their gifts. Rebecca is also the person that connected me with Mary Greasy, who many Moon to Moon listeners know from our 2 episodes in 2024. Mary Greasy's been my mentor, and I first started to take Mary Greasy's courses at Rebecca's suggestion. And that's kind of a big deal for me. I don't choose teachers casually, especially because I was going to be learning some stuff with Mary when I first took her first class that I had already, quote unquote, learned before. And so it was like, well, but I already know those things. And I really just trusted Rebecca that there was going to be something for me, even if I thought I already know that, So I just went in, and it was skill set that was helpful, but more than that, it was just Mary Greasy's presence. It's like Mary Greasy as a being is what I was investing in having in my life, Powerful shit. I hope that was supportive to you, especially all of you who have wanted to get closer to your 4th house, to understand your 4th house. As you can hear from the conversation, it's a basement of many stories. The stairs just go down and down and down and down and down. It's one of those houses that I think can feel slippery because there's so much in the unconscious and there's so much in the past and in memory, and not all of that is languageable or super available to us to make sense of, and I really am so glad that I invited someone like Rebecca, who straddles the worlds of astrology and mysticism and art and psychism, to come swim in all that with me, because I that's really the vibe of the house, At least that's how it feels to me. All right, then. If you want to go deeper with your 4th house and you're like, okay, I'm ready to think more about my 4th house, I'm ready to feel more into my 4th house, it might be supportive to you to get the sign book of mine that is the sign at your 4th house. If you just feel like you're ready to unlock these mysteries, that's in quotes, by the way, because can we really fully unlock mysteries, right? We just kind of they just keep revealing, right? That's the vibe. But The sign of your fourth house, I have a Living the Signs workbook. If you get that workbook, you can just start to like drop in, and see what levels of clarity start to unfold for you as you tune in deeper to the sign. Because in a way, you can think about it this way, that sign is down in there. Like that sign is down low. There's not as a lot of consciousness about it. So, but it's still there. And so that could be something that could be really helpful to you. So I'm just going to throw that out. I just got a ding to do that. So I'll include the link to my Living the Signs workbooks in the show notes in case that's something that would be supportive to you as you continue to follow the threads. All right. Thank you so much. So excited to bring you Unshaming the fifth house next. See you next time.